Hi everybody and welcome back. We're still here in Half Moon Bay and I'm really excited to welcome Maeve Miller, a student at Notre Dame University in chilly South Bend, Indiana. Thank you, Maeve, for joining us. I hope your conference has been going well so far.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I've had such a great time so far.
Yeah, it's been a really wide variety of people and topics, super interesting stuff. I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, great experience.
Great. Well, let's jump into it. I wanted to first ask you, what brought you here? How did you end up on this couch with me today? What's your kind of story been so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'd ask myself the same question. Yeah, so basically I'd say in high school, I did a lot of stuff related to technology. And then I had come to Notre Dame, and I have a mentor there who's a professor who basically knew Kathleen Hester or whatever. She basically owns like the Gen Z organization. We are Gen Z, and then he put me in contact with her, and she basically said, "Oh, you know, Adobe's doing this think tank series about Gen Z in the workplace. You know, what are your thoughts on this? I'd like to see what you think." And I was like, "Sure, you know what? This would be awesome."
And we love getting the perspective. We had a wide variety of people in the glass tank this week, from business leaders to other Gen Z individuals. It's really interesting to learn kind of how you guys see yourselves as you grow into the next wave of the workforce.
Yeah.
So on that topic, in your experience so far and what you've learned this week, like how do you think tech companies or companies in general, what do they need to do to attract your generation to work at their organizations? Yeah,
I think one huge thing that I hear all the time about this like upcoming generation, which includes myself, is that we want to make a social difference or a social impact. And even at this conference today, just hearing people speak about that they want to do meaningful work. And I think a lot of Gen Zers want to make a social impact. So I think obviously a lot of companies can say that they have some kind of ethical boundaries or like that they do something that really makes change for good, but a lot of people can obviously see through that at times. So I think that companies that really make a difference are ones that really attract Gen Zers. An example of this would be, I recently, in my marketing class, the professor asked, "Oh, what's a brand that intrigues you?" And a lot of people said Patagonia. Okay. And I think a huge reason why was a lot of people said the effort that they're making towards climate change and like environmental change, in the sense that I think all of their tax return money is going towards that. Yeah. So that definitely piqued a lot of people's interest. And I think if you want to attract Gen Zers, you need to be a company that's out there doing stuff for good. You have that story, and it's not, to your point, it's authentic. Yeah. It's not just for show, it's actually shown in the actions of the company. I totally agree with that. I really feel like, and tell me if you agree, a lot of companies are making really meaningful strides towards that kind of mentality or action versus just speech. Yeah, and I also think that obviously a lot of companies are recognizing this as well, so they're creating initiatives to try to get more people involved, also just like to increase diversity at their companies. And while obviously at times this may be kind of like a superficial thing at first, there needs to be that paradigm shift. Yeah. So you need to have that initial push, and I think although sometimes it may be kind of on the surface as it seems, you still need to have that kind of initial change in order for there to be overall change. Paradigm shift, to your point. You have to change your mindset, and then the actions will follow. Yeah. So let's switch it around a little bit. How do you think, or what do you think Gen Z individuals, Gen Z women especially, need to succeed in the workplace? What kind of skill sets or mentality? What's your perspective on that? Yeah, I'd say, especially growing up during a time of the internet, a lot of Gen Zers are super independent in what they do, and kind of like, I can find out almost immediately what I need to be doing and stuff like that. So I think that a lot of people have created like individual goals and aspirations, and I think to have a company or something or someone supporting you in your own personal goals, not just at a corporate level or a professional level, but also to have a duality between your personal goals and aspirations, and also what you want to do in the workforce.
Yeah.
I think because there's so much information out there that it's led to a lot of like really niche or specific interests and hobbies.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of like having the people there behind you to support you in whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I think that, you draw a really interesting parallel between you have your personal goals and your personal interests, but also tying them into the workforce and making sure that you can find alignment between what you like and what the company needs. I think that's an important, realization to have, especially at a young age like yourself, which is really, really great. What would you say that Gen Z defines success as? Like, what is a successful initiative or project? Is it really just completion, or is there something else that's a little different, you think, than other generations?
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said before, I think a lot of Gen Zers want to make a legitimate, like, social impact, and I think sometimes, especially if you are a part of a larger organization, sometimes it's kind of hard to really see the tangible effects of the work that you do.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that Gen Zers would, at least for me personally, I would define success as like seeing the impact that you've made.
Yeah.
Or
not just checking a box, but actually like seeing a result.
And doing something that helps helps the community, helps your generation, because while obviously sometimes the internet can be a place where it distances people, at the same time it can also bring people together, and I think it has, in many ways, it's caused our generation to come closer in terms of like a global spectrum.
I totally see that.
Yeah, so I'd say that definitely has, making a global difference definitely has an impact in terms of how I would define success for a Gen Zer.
So I want to touch real quick on something you mentioned around like technology bringing people together, but also sometimes bringing people apart. And I totally agree with what you're saying, that in your generation especially, it seems that like technology is really uniting people across borders. How have you seen that in your own personal life?
I'd say in high school, I actually created this like conference for people in the New York City area where I'm from. And after I created this event, there was kind of not news of it, but people shared, the experience and stuff like that. And through that, a bunch of other girls who had found out about this kind of reached out to me, and some of them were from across the US. And we basically, video chat or like Skyped, and they wanted to create their own events in their own neighborhoods and stuff like that. So I think that's obviously an example of, even though we were physically very far apart, we, got together virtually, and also because of that, they also allowed people to come together through these conferences and meetings and stuff.
So
like that.
you can see it spreading across, and that's all because of technology. It's super, super cool. One last question before we wrap up. You're Gen Z, you're a sophomore in college. What do you think is your future? What's next for you?
What's next for me? Well, I think one thing that has always really interested me since like high school is education reform, and I think with that, how technology can really change education. So maybe it was like freshman year or something, I watched a TED Talk about, I think it was by the guy who created Khan Academy, Sal Khan, who he talked about how we're kind of changing from an era of industrialism into an era of automation, and because of this, the general pyramid of the workforce is now inverted. So instead of a lot of general workers at the bottom, it's now a lot of entrepreneurs at the top. So instead of being a jack of all trades, a lot of people need to become masters in what they do. And then since then, I've also looked into some research and books by a guy named, I think, forgot his name. I don't know why I'm blanking. But he basically also talked about how we need to put more of an emphasis on the arts and humanities, because traditionally, obviously during the time of industrialism, science and math was highly valued. And even in like middle school, music class was kind of like, oh, play the recorder, yeah. But I think now we really have the opportunity to give everyone the chance to really study what they genuinely want to study and want to pursue. And I think education is so important for a lot of different reasons. So to be able to customize education through technology, I feel like that could really change a lot of things. So that's definitely something that I would see myself pursuing in the future, however that may be.
That's great. No, it's a great vision. I agree. We're at a changing point in education and in the workforce as well. Maeve, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate the time, and enjoy the rest of this great conference.
Oh, thank you.
And everyone out there, thanks for watching. And we'll be back in a little bit with some more great interviews. Follow along at #AdobeTT, and we'll talk to you soon.